Okay, today we are discussing at the Surfside Kollel Boker Choshen Mishpat, Volume 2. This is a piece put together by Rabbi Aaron Tendler at Torah.org. Very interesting business halachic obligations of a landlord. Specifically, the question is, what item is in a home is a landlord halachically obligated to fix if they are broken during the rental period? So we're not talking about state law, where you are in the state of Florida, or if you're in the state of New York or New Jersey. We're not talking about that. We're talking halacha here. And after this case came up of a recent landlord-tenant situation, I decided to buy the Landlord and Tenant in Halacha by Rabbi Baruch Meir Levine. It's right here. We're going to be studying from this book, Belina did on a daily basis, to understand basics of Landlord and Tenant in Halacha. It seems like a great book. I skimmed it. Looked really nice. It gave some insight. Of course, that shouldn't be the end game, but this is intended to open the mind as to what things some people might be responsible for, some things they may not be responsible for, whether you can pass the buck by saying someone else is responsible, a broker, a property manager. We're going to find all that out today. Let's begin with the answer. Number 1A. Before someone rents a home to his friend, he is obligated to fix up any items that are usually fixed by a skilled workman. These include any doors, windows, kitchen cabinets, water pipes, and electrical outlets that are not working properly. He's also obligated to fix anything else that is customarily in working order when moving into a rental property. If the railings on the porch or roof that is used as living space are not as high as required by halacha, like a ma'akeh, the landlord is obligated to bear the expense of raising them to the required height. However, mezuzot must be put up by the tenant at his own expense. Okay, so that was 1A. We're going to go into 1B right now. The obligation of a landlord to fix the above-mentioned items exists, even if the tenant was aware of these problems before agreeing to rent and did not comment on them. That's if the tenant, of course, David, he knew about the problems. It's not even talking about a situation if a tenant didn't know. If a tenant didn't know, alachat kama v'kama. Here he's talking about a tenant that sold a place, that was aware of problems, and just didn't inform the landlord. Okay. However, if the landlord explicitly stipulated that he's renting the property in the condition that he does not have to fix these items, he has no obligation to do so. So the halakha gives us a way out. You can tell the individual, I'm being very clear, it's rented as is. I will be fixing nothing other than the roof and the walls. Do not call me about anything. I do that with commercial properties, double net or triple net leases. I tell them, as long as it's not the roof or the walls, don't call me. Easy. Make it simple. This is the option. The halakha gives that opportunity to a residential contract. C. If the property was in perfect condition before the tenant moved in and the problems occurred during the rental period, the liability of the landlord is dependent on the cause. Okay, so here a person moved into a place, everything was perfect, and certain things deteriorated over time, normal wear and tear. Number 1, if the problem was caused by an outside factor, vandals threw a rock that broke a window on the rental property, or a blockage was accidentally caused in the pipes by a child flushing a washcloth, the landlord does not have to fix this. That was caused from the outside. However, neither does the tenant. If he wishes to return the property to the owner in this condition, he may. So it means here that, let's say a guy is renting a property and his son clogged all the toilets, 3 of the 3 toilets, and now they don't work. The landlord does not have to fix it. Neither does the tenant, according to halacha. So if the tenant wants, he could just leave, according to the Jewish law. Of course, there might be more details, and you'd have to ask, pertinent dayan or halachic posek. But this on the surface is pretty clear. Number 2, if the breakage was caused by normal use, pipes started leaking or the water boiler broke, and it's likely that these things could happen after the amount of time that they have been in operation. Normal wear and tear, things, over time might deteriorate. The landlord would be obligated to fix them. So if there's a washing machine in the place, it's there for 5 years, 6 years, 10 years, it's already getting old, there's issues with it, the normal wear and tear would not be responsibility of the tenant. If the items should not have broken during normal uses and it just happened to break for some unknown reason, or if it is determined that the tenant improperly operated any of the items in the home, and this may have been a contributing factor to the breakage, the landlord would have no obligation to fix them. I want to read a little bit of the sources in regards to this. The Gemara in Bava Kama 99b states that a worker who is considered to be an expert in his field who unintentionally causes financial damage on the job to the person that hired him must pay for that damage. As a side note, an employee, from my understanding, labor laws, I don't know if this is everywhere, but usually an employee is not responsible if they break something.
You mentioned that.
I'm pretty confident that employees do not have to pay. I know that in New York you can't charge an employee that broke something. Maybe there's conditions to it, but that's what I remembered. Especially if the employee is being paid. According to Halacha, if that person is an expert in his field and he did damage something, he would be required according to Halacha. This is because he's considered a shomer sachar, a paid watchman, who is liable for any damage caused by him. And if he is not being paid for his work, he's considered a shomer chinam, an unpaid watchman, and cannot be held liable for damages caused by him, unless he was negligent. Shomer chinam is only negligence. It is stated as the Halacha in Shulchan Aruch Choshen Mishpat 306-6. In the case discussed in question B, it is clear from the Gemara in Bava Metzia 81a and in the Teshuvot Maharam, he quotes the Mordechai in Bava Metzia, Siman 359, that the messenger Shimon must be considered a paid worker, even for transporting the diamond to the exchange, since he is planning on benefiting from Reuven by making a percentage of the sale of his diamond. We consider transporting the diamond to be part of the transaction that Reuven will pay him for. To retain the lesser liability of a shomer chinam, the watchman must be doing the owner a favor and not have his own interest in mind at all, as discussed below. In our case, Shimon's transporting the diamond is clearly in his own interest, and therefore he has the liability of a shomer sachar. There he's talking about a diamond being delivered, where the individual doesn't get paid for the diamond being delivered, but he gets paid if the diamond gets sold by Reuven. And so therefore, it was a question whether he's a shomer chinam or shomer sachar. There would be shomer sachar. Therefore, although it is true that if Shimon would not find any buyers for the diamond, he would receive no payment at all, the fact that there is a possibility that he will receive payment qualifies him as someone working for money who has the liability of a shomer sachar. This is why the Rama in Choshen Mishpat 306-4 in the Shulchan Aruch states that a shochet, a slaughterer who receives payment only for animals that he slaughters that are found to be kosher, is considered a paid worker on all of the animals. Consequently, if he unintentionally causes one of the animals to be non-kosher, he must compensate the order, even though he receives no payment for slaughtering non-kosher animals. This is also discussed there, and then he brings in two other sources. Okay. However, regarding the money exchanger discussed in question A, the Ketzot HaChoshen in 227-11 quotes the Teshuvat Tashbatz in volume 2, Siman 174, that he cannot be held liable for his mistake, even if he would have advised Reuven correctly that the bills were actually counterfeit. He would have received no payment for his service. He only receives payment when the bills are authentic. Therefore, according to the presently known reality, Shimon was an unpaid expert worker. Since there was no possibility that he would get paid for his advice, either it would be correct, he would not get paid, or it would be incorrect, and he certainly would not be deserving of payment. Consequently, as long as he caused the loss unintentionally and not at all through negligence, he cannot be held liable. The Mishnah in Gemara and Bava Metzia 101b state that a landlord is obligated to fix up any items usually fixed by a skilled craftsman on a rental property before a tenant occupies it. This is true even if the tenant is handy and can fix these things up by himself. Let's say the tenant is a contractor or a general contractor, or he knows how to do it. This is stated as the Halacha in Shulchan Aruch Choshen Mishpat 314. The Rama there adds that even if the tenant was aware of these problems before agreeing to rent and did not complain about them, this is not to be considered as if he was foregoing his right to have these items fixed. All the more so if the tenant didn't even see the place and signed the lease. Rather, he assumed that the landlord would certainly take care of these things, and there was no need to point them out. However, if the landlord explicitly stated that he has no intention of fixing these things and the tenant agreed to rent it anyway, he cannot come back and try to obligate the landlord to fix them. Although the Gemara and Shulchan Aruch there indicate that the tenant is responsible for mezuzah and ma'akeh, since they are mitzvot that are incumbent on the person living there, not necessarily the property owner. The Ramas there states that that we must go after whatever is customary in present-day society. Today, it is customary for building contractors and landlords to provide railings of the proper height. and to install light fixtures and electrical sockets in every room, even if not stated explicitly in the contract. Sometimes there's even code issues from the building department, like you can't have a room without an outlet, or you have to have a certain GFI outlet within next to a sink, or smoke detector, or things of those nature. That's just the society, what it is. However, it's not customary to provide the mezuzot, so this remains the tenant's obligation, as stated there in the Gemara. If anyone has any comments, you can email Torah.org directly, or us at office@shul.com. What's interesting to note is with the mezuzot is that that's here with a landlord-tenant, but if a person owns a property and he sells it to another Jew, especially residential home property, he should be careful to keep the mezuzot there, as halacha brings down. We'll get into that at a different time. Baruch Adonai le'olam. Amen v'amen.